Hello, all. Thank you for joining the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection and the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events for this webinar, Business Licensing 101 for Creatives. My name is Laura Trejo Lozano, she, her pronouns, and I'm Program Director of Cultural Resources at DCASE. We are excited to co-host this webinar to clarify business license types and processes for creatives. While being an artist does not in and of itself require a license, artists and creatives have multifaceted work, and some of the activations of their work do require licensing. BACP will share information on general licensing requirements, as well as specific license types that are common amongst creatives, including selling your art, presenting performances, and hosting in-person workshops with youth. Please note that this is not an exhaustive list, but is meant to provide initial guidance. Before launching into the licensing portion of today's webinar, I want to share more about DCASE and our connection to this work. DCASE supports individual artists and organizations and expands access and participation in the arts. In addition to presenting legacy programs like Taste of Chicago, Chicago Blues Fest, Chicago Jazz Festival, we offer grants for individuals, arts organizations, and cultural producers. We offer dance, theater, and visual arts residencies, as well as visual art exhibitions in the Chicago Cultural Center. And we support artists, filmmakers, and all other creatives with professional development opportunities. Our department has additionally worked to embed arts and culture in other citywide priorities by partnering with departments like BACP, the Department of Planning, and the Office of Equity and Racial Justice to integrate arts and culture into relevant programs and initiatives. In 2024, we co-presented an educational campaign to clarify labor protections for creative workers. That campaign was a partnership with BACP, the Office of Labor Standards, and the Illinois Department of Labor. That campaign allowed us to share valuable worker protection information with creatives across Chicago. In our work, we continue to look for ways to make it possible for artists to have an arts practice, run organizations, present events, and much more. Clarifying business licensing is one way that we look forward to connecting creative workers with the resources they need to continue building their work. With that, I will hand it over to Amir Aviles with BACP, who will walk us through Business Licensing 101.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. On behalf of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection, I want to welcome you again to Business Licensing 101 for Creatives. Again, my name is Amir Aviles. I am a business consultant supervisor here at the Business Center, and I will be your presenter for this portion of the webinar, where a high-level overview of how to apply for a license, the most common license types for creatives, and the necessary requirements will be provided. Let me first start off by saying how delighted I am to be a part of this webinar. Chicago is a vibrant hub for talented creators, artists, and performers, and webinars like this play a crucial role in fostering its creative community, ensuring the city remains an inspiring home for generations of visionaries to come. So thank you for being here, and thank you to DCASE for setting this up. And so with that, let's get started. So, Business Licensing 101 for Creatives has been designed to give you, again, a high-level overview of what to expect when it comes to obtaining a City of Chicago license to sell art, perform, or host in-person workshops. We will cover what the process looks like if you were to apply online versus in person, three common types of business licenses for creators, documents needed for your application, information that will need to be furnished, steps to receiving zoning approval, the application completion process once zoning has been approved, paying for your license, and then some probable inspections your business will undergo. We will also touch on holds that may prevent license issuance, and finally, receiving your license. Our hospitality team will then give insight into hospitality licensing. And so with that, next slide, online versus in person. So when it comes to applying for a City of Chicago license, you have two options. You can either do it online via Chicago Business Direct or in person at the Small Business Center located at City Hall. To submit your application online, you would visit chicago.gov/businessdirect. Now, once there, you will first register, that is, create a user profile. It's important to note that only one user profile is allowed per person. So you want to make sure that you read the instructions carefully so as to ensure that you've created a user profile that is compliant. And then email and photo ID verification will be required so that you can then access licensed services, which is the section of Business Direct where you will go ahead and submit your application. If you choose to go this route, the online route, that is, the application process is self-service. And so what that means is that all communication and all documents will be they need to be satisfied, will be via the platform, with notifications being sent via email. And so just know that it's very self-service. There is a $25 upfront fee that gets applied to your license. However, if you don't end up getting your license, do note that that fee is non-refundable. So you want to make sure that you do your research, you do your due diligence before going and applying online. Now, the second option to submitting for a license is in person here at City Hall, located 121 North LaSalle. And this can be done Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And we're located in room 805. We operate on a walk-in basis, and so there's no need for an appointment. Once you arrive at the center, you'll notice the reception that is highlighted in that picture there. And there will more than likely be either one or two consultants that will be greeting you. And so upon your visit, they'll ask you the reason for the visit. Um, they will then provide you a ticket number, and then they will have you complete what's called a business information sheet if you haven't already done so. Now, it's good to note that this business information sheet is available online at chicago.gov/business licensing. And so it would be very beneficial for you to look at it beforehand or to have it pre-filled prior to coming into your visit so that you know what some of the required information will be. And so once your ticket is called, then you will meet with a consultant where you'll have a one-on-one consultation around your business operations, what product or service you're offering, and hopefully an application will be submitted so that you ultimately are on your way to obtaining a City of Chicago license. Now, if you do plan on visiting us in person, do note that our wait times are readily available online. And so if you want to have an idea of how long the wait times are, again, chicago.gov/business licensing. Next slide. Thank you. So now that we've explored the different avenues for submitting a license application, let's talk a little bit about the three most common license types that enable you to sell your art, to perform, or to host workshops from a non-hospitality side. And so first off, we have our peddler license. And so a peddler license allows you to sell general merchandise, so your art. And you can sell this from a wagon, a vehicle, or a cart that continually moves from place to place. A peddler license also allows you to street perform, and this would include acting, singing, or playing an instrument. Now, do note that there is a noise ordinance that you must abide to. You do have to be 18 years of age to apply. And with this peddler license, if you do plan on selling your art, do note that no tables or no fixed structures are allowed. There are also certain areas of the city that are designated no peddling zones in which street peddlers are not permitted to conduct business. And then these districts are listed in the Municipal Code of Chicago, Section 4-244-140. There is also a list that is kept in the office of the city clerk. So, as far as the peddler license goes, it does cover you for a 2-year term, and the cost for this peddler license is $100. Now, the second license will be that of an art gallery for the sale of art. where your retail sales are conducted out of a brick and mortar location. This means you have a physical address to conduct your business. This license, again, is issued specifically to your business address so that you can sell art or general merchandise. The art gallery for the sale of art does not permit you to host events such as those where there's exhibitions or where there's a charge of admission. This license, the art gallery for sale of art, has a cost of $250 and it covers you for also a term of 2 years. So we've covered two of the most common business license types so far: the peddler, which again allows you to be able to sell on the public way, on the public street. Again, just to kind of recap, no tables or fixed structures are allowed. And the peddler license also allows you to be able to perform. The art gallery for the sale of art permits you to be able to sell your items from a brick and mortar location. And finally, let's talk a little bit about the dance, martial arts, music instruction, art instruction, gymnastics studio license. So this license allows you to be able to train or host workshops in the arts of combat, self-defense, music, art, gymnastics, and or dance. This license requires you to determine whether your facility is designated strictly for children, strictly for adults, or for both. If it serves for both groups, you must specify whether less than 40% of attendees will be children under 18, or if 40% or more will be children under 18. If the facility is solely for children under the age of 18, then you would go with the 40% or more option. Application requirements and documents will vary depending on that metric of 40%. And the same is the cost for the license. It depends on that 40% metric. In both cases, the license term is 2 years. So the peddler license is good for 2 years. The art gallery sale of art license is good for 2 years. And the dance studio, martial arts, music instruction, art instruction, gymnastics studio license is also good for 2 years. And so next slide, please. Now, by the time you're looking to apply for your City of Chicago license, you should already have your business registered with the appropriate government agencies, or at least have had an idea of how you plan on operating. The reason is that we will require certain documents to validate your legal entity and establish your relationship here with the city. Those documents include a government issued photo ID, state registration from the Illinois Secretary of State. So think of articles of organization if you set up an LLC, or articles of incorporation if you establish a corporation. An Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number, otherwise known as an IDOR, and an employer ID number, that is an EIN from the IRS. Now, going back to that IDOR number, and the reason we've highlighted it is to stress that this number will be needed if you plan on selling anything tangible or physical to your client. So if you plan on selling art or an item that your client can physically walk away with, you need to obtain that Illinois Department of Revenue account ID number. And this is so that you can report your sales to the state of Illinois. Okay. Also, make note that if you're applying for a peddler license, again, the peddler license allows you to be able to sell general merchandise on the public way or on the streets. It also allows you to perform. If you're applying for this peddler license, this license is applied for as a sole proprietor. And so what that means is it's applied for under your name, under your personal information. Regardless, again, if you're selling something physical, something tangible, you will need to obtain that IDOR number. There will not be a need for you to register with the state, an LLC or a corporation, just because we don't issue peddler licenses for LLCs or corporations. And really, the last takeaway with this slide is if you've registered in a state outside of Illinois, you would need to register your entity as a foreign entity um, with the state of Illinois. So next slide. So once your documents are in order, then it's time to submit your application. You'll hand in the uh, business information sheet that was referenced earlier. And again, that can be pulled up prior to your visit at chicago.gov/business licensing, and it can be pre-filled. If you're going the online route, then you would just you would submit your application via the platform. All applications are going to require you to provide us ownership information for all controlling parties. And so some of that information, some basic general information would be name, date of birth, social security number, or EIN. And we would need that information for all owners that have control of the business. So think of managing members, the president, the secretary, or any partners. Um, your application will also call for the business address so that zoning can determine if the activity you're looking to engage in is allowed at that specific address. So whenever we issue out a license, it is location driven. Licenses cannot be transferred. Now, do note that a peddler license does not undergo zoning review just because you don't have a physical location that you're selling out, that you're selling from, or that you're performing from. The peddler license is so that you move along the public way. But if you do have a brick and mortar location, then we're going to need again the address. If there's a suite, if you're on a specific floor, we want to know all that information. We will also need to know the square feet of the establishment. And the reason we say that is because there are certain license types that where the fee for the license is driven by square footage. So just make sure that you know the square footage of the brick and mortar location. And then finally, we're going to need a detailed description of your business activity. So think about it this way. What we want to know is how are you making money, right? What service or product, or maybe both, what is it that you're offering at this specific address? Going back to a previous screen, right? Well, your facility have children under the age of 18, and will the capacity be 40% or more? That's all information that we're going to want to know. The more we know, the better. What we don't want happening is we license you and you end up operating outside of the activities that you were licensed for, and now you're under license. And so the more we know, the better. And so just be prepared to provide us all information so that we can properly license you. Next screen, please. All right. So zoning is the first review your application undergoes if you are operating from a brick and mortar location. Again, a zoning review does not apply if you're applying for a peddler license. And the reason why a zoning review is needed if you're operating out of a brick and mortar location is to ensure first and foremost that your business activity is permitted at that specific location. And so to ensure that a proper review is completed, as previously mentioned, we're going to want a detailed description of the activities that are going to be conducted in this space. For some applications, the review could include you providing us a site plan and a survey, architectural plans or drawings. You might need to satisfy parking requirements. To give you an example, when operating a indoor event space, there is a 10% parking requirement. And so these are just some of the items that we're going to need for you to satisfy so that zoning can do a proper review. And then if there's a need for a driveway, we would need for you to provide us that driveway letter from the Department of Transportation. Next slide. And so as you get ready to apply or go through zoning approval, it's important to keep these reminders top of mind. First, before you get into any sort of financial commitment, whether that's buying a property or leasing, um, check with us first, right? Provide us the address so that we can determine whether or not the activity you're looking to engage in is permitted. What we don't want happening is you commit to a lease or you buy the property thinking, hey, I can establish an art, I can obtain an art gallery license here to sell art, and turns out for some reason or another that specific zone doesn't permit it, right? And so check with us first. Don't assume that maybe because there was previously X activity taking place there, that activity can also be transferable to you. Um, so definitely check with us first. If you have a specific address in mind, you can always shoot us an email at businesslicensing@cityofchicago.org, or you can come to the Small Business Center. You can provide us the address, you can provide us the activities that you're looking to engage in, and we can go ahead and check if zoning permits for that activity to take place. And again, I do just want to stress again that for a peddler license, there is no zoning review. And then just, again, understand that there might be some documents that you may need to satisfy. Some of those could include plans, architectural drawings, things of that nature. Next slide. So once zoning approves, then a full application will generate, which you will need to acknowledge and verify. And among that, we would want you to verify that all the ownership information is correct, that everything you wrote down on that business information sheet matches what we've entered. And so you're going to want to ensure that we have your correct email, your correct phone number, date of birth, social security number. What we wouldn't want happening is having information that's incorrect. Um, Part of the application completion process could also require you to provide us a lease of the space that you plan on operating out of. And the application will also require you to answer a few questions and make some attestations. And so once your application is completed and reviewed, then a payment coupon will be generated. Next slide. So payment for your license can be made at the Small Business Center. It can also be made here at City Hall at the clerk office on the first floor. So we do have a cashier here on our floor, and then there's also one on the first floor. So payment can be made either one of those ways. If you're doing the application online, then you would submit your payment via the online platform. Do note that license fees are non-refundable. And again, the cost in the license varies depending on the license type. Again, that peddler license, $100. If you're operating out of a brick and mortar location and you're obtaining what's called a limited business license to simply sell general merchandise, sell your art, that license will more than likely be $250. Now, do note that payment doesn't always mean that your license has been issued or that it's ready, right? For some license types, what payment does is it triggers inspections and final approvals are needed prior to the license being issued. And so just know that depending on your business activity, right, making payment doesn't always mean, hey, your license is going to be provided to you same day. That could just simply trigger some inspections or some final approvals that may be needed. Next slide. Now, when it comes to inspections, inspections are license type driven. For example, if you're just selling out of a brick and mortar location, um, your art, general merchandise, 10 out of 10 times there won't be any inspections. But if your facility is going to have children under the age of 18, and the vast majority of those, attending the facility, are children, then there might be some additional inspections that may be required. And those inspections could include a debt check, City of Chicago Department of Public Health inspection, a building inspection, a fire inspection, and it could also mean a fingerprint-based criminal history investigation. Next slide. Now, once you've gone through inspections, if any, then you're almost at the finish line. We're almost there. Remember, at this point, we've entered our application. We've gone through zoning. We've satisfied needed documents. We've completed our application. We've confirmed everything is correct. The last thing, if any, that would hold up license issuance would be city holds. And so some of these holds may be for overdue city tax filings, outstanding fines resulting from business enforcement, parking tickets, overdue public way use payments, things of that nature. And so you might want to check with the Department of Finance to ensure that there are no outstanding liabilities, just because a failed inspection could prolong license issuance. And if there are any outstanding balances, like let's say, I don't know, you have an outstanding water bill, you can always, you have two options. You can pay it in full, or they might be able to put you on a payment plan. And then do note that once your license is obtained, if there are any future holds, notice of holds, including instructions on how to resolve those holds, are sent by mail to business locations, and they're also available on Chicago Business Direct. Next slide. So after all inspections are approved and all holds are resolved, congratulations, we can now open for business. So this is the license that you would get if you're operating out of a brick and mortar location. If you are applying for a peddler license, what you would then get is a badge. And so that badge, they will more than likely take your picture on the first floor at City Clerk. So when you come in to obtain your badge, make sure you look nice, clean, presentable, pretty, just because they are going to take a picture. And if you are applying, or if you are obtaining a license for a brick and mortar location, your license will be mailed via USPS to the mailing address, which more than often is the business location. If you would like to arrange for us to hold the license so that you could pick it up in person, that can also be worked out. And in summary, for these services and much more, please visit chicago.gov/business licensing, where again, you're able to apply, renew, and update information. And should you need any additional information, feel free to pay us a visit online again or in person here at City Hall. Again, you can email us with questions at businesslicense@cityofchicago.org. And if you have questions related to Chicago Business Direct, that is our online platform, those questions can be emailed to chicagobusinessdirect@cityofchicago.org. And so at this time, I will turn it over.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Weiland. I am the Assistant Commissioner that oversees our hospitality licensing team here at BACP in the Small Business Center. I am just here to add a couple additional license types to the presentation that Amir just gave for those licenses that are considered quote unquote hospitality licenses. Our biggest hospitality license, and the one that you all probably participate in without even knowing, is our public place of amusement license. A public place of amusement license is required anytime that you want to produce, present, or conduct any type of amusement within the city. As you can see on the screen, amusement is a defined term in the municipal code, but it's basically going to be any exhibition, performance, presentation, or show for entertainment purposes. And then the definition goes on to give a bunch of examples of what that could be. Next slide. So as a general rule, a public place of amusement license, or PPA license, as we refer to it in shorthand, is required to present, produce, or conduct any type of amusement. This comes up in two extremely common ways. So the first is going to be anytime a venue is charging an admission fee for entertainment, or if you are in a venue that has a capacity over 100 that's offering entertainment. And that's regardless of any type of fee is charged. So if the venue is big enough and you have a band performing and you're open to the public, that's going to require a PPA license. PPA licensing is a little tricky the way that it is drafted within the municipal code. The requirements are actually listed within the exceptions. And so I included the citation to the municipal code, which is 4156-305, and listed a couple common exceptions that we see. So the first most common exception is sort of the inverse of what I just said. So if you have amusement activity, but your occupancy is under 100 and you're not doing any charging to get into that venue, a PPA license will not be required. We see this a lot at bars or taverns. You know, you think of your like tiny neighborhood bar that only has a occupancy of like 60 people and they have a DJ or a band on Thursday nights. That's not going to require a PPA license. There's also exceptions for private events held in banquet halls or restaurants without additional charging. So see this a lot for like, think of like a wedding or some sort of event that's being held in the banquet space within a restaurant. That's not going to require a PPA license. Certain types of music, orchestra music in hotels or restaurants where there's no dancing and no charging won't require it. Live or recorded book readings. There's other types of activities that are exceptions to PPA licensing, but I tried to include the ones that I thought were relevant to the DCASE and creative lane here. So the license fee for a public place of amusement license is one of those that Amir kind of touched on when he said license fees can vary based on square footage. For PPA licenses, it's going to depend on your occupancy. So the lowest license fee would be $770, and that is for any place that has an occupancy of 350 or lower. And it can go all the way up to 13,000. That's a really big venue though. That's like over 4,000 people. We're talking the Chicago Theater, places like that. Next slide. The next type of license type that I wanted to touch on is a variant of the PPA license, and it is called a performing arts venue. A performing arts venue is going to allow for the production of live theatrical or live cultural performances, so long as the occupancy is under 500. And so this is really getting more into your small local community theater type spaces. The requirements in general are similar to what's required for a PPA license, but as you can see, the license fee is much lower at only $110. And there are additional fees for if your occupancy. I kind of skipped over that. If your performing arts venue is connected to a school or like a church, you can have your capacity up to 1,000. Your license fee will increase based on how many persons in your occupancy is included over 500. So if you have an occupancy in a performing arts venue that's under 100 and there's no fee charged, you would not require a PAV or a PPA license if you're accepting donations, but there must be clear signage indicating that the donations are optional. And if you are interested in this type of license, you would meet with a hospitality business consultant and they would walk you through all the requirements that are in the code for this signage that would have to be posted at your brick and mortar location. Next slide. The final license type I just want to touch on because we're seeing them more and more, and I think it's important for this webinar. It's called an indoor special event license, and I like to think of these as sort of temporary PPA licenses. It allows for temporary amusement activity. It allows you to charge for that activity. And there are provisions within the code that would also allow you to apply for like a temporary liquor license. We're seeing these more and more around the city with sort of these pop-up events that come into the city for, maybe 4 weekends in a row, and it's like Alice in Wonderland theme or something like that, where there's music and dancing and food and drinking, but it's not a permanent business that's staying there for years and years to come. The requirements for an indoor special event license are pretty restrictive. You are only allowed to pull this type of license, temporary license, if you are a not-for-profit entity that's been registered with the state of Illinois and have been in existence for at least 3 years. If you are looking to do this type of activity and you've identified a location similar to what Amir was saying, I would highly suggest you come in and talk to us before you sign a lease, nail anything down with the landlord, because there's also location restrictions. So an actual brick and mortar location can only have 6 of these events in a 12-month period. So if there is an open storefront that has had pop-up indoor special events before, it may be off the table on being able to have one in, the recent future from where that last event was, because they may have hit their 6 events per 12-month period. And each event, when you do have an indoor special event, cannot exceed 3 consecutive days. License fee is $100 a day. This one I also want to note is not available on our online application system. So this one, if you would have to come in person on the 8th floor of City Hall to apply for this license. Next slide. Finally, from a hospitality perspective, I just wanted to list out a couple friendly reminders. Hospitality licensing can be a little more in-depth than the non-hospitality licensing. There's no situation, with maybe the exception of an indoor special event, where you're going to apply for a license in the hospitality lane, so your PPA or your performing arts venue, and get that license the same day. These licenses are always going to require onset inspections. You're going to have to undergo fingerprints and do a background check. And then, as noted on the slide, there's always a mandatory 35-day notification period before the license can be issued. So even if you are doing everything correctly, your paperwork is 100% ready to go, you submit all of it to us and you make your payment, the absolute earliest we could ever issue one of these licenses on day 36. And that is because there are mandatory notifications that have to go out. So all registered voters that are within 250 feet of your premises are going to be notified of the proposed business activity for that location, as well as your local alderman. And so I just flag that for everybody, because if you're, working off timelines, trying to open a theater or something, and you have a hard start date when you want to be open, keep that in mind, that you're going to have to backtrack at least a month or 2. And that's with everything going perfectly, which we all know doesn't always happen. The other thing that I wanted to flag, Amir noted that, like, you can email us and we'll check locations and that sort of thing. For a public place of amusement application, there are some pretty restrictive provisions within the code regarding where these venues can be, related to zoning and related to what we call affected institutions. BACP does offer a service, we call it proximity restrictions checks, for a $250 fee. You can come in and request a proximity restriction check, and then you will get an official determination from BACP of any potential hurdle that may be in your way. So PPA licenses, you can't be within 200 feet of a church, school, hospital. without doing an additional step of a distance reduction. If we go out and do a proximity restriction check, we're checking for that. So we'll be the ones to notify you that, hey, you're within 100 feet of a school. It's not an absolute no on this application, but you're going to have to go through a couple more steps so that we know it's okay that you establish your business that closely to a school. Also, I'd like to point out that a lot of times PPA and PAV licenses go hand in hand with liquor licenses. That's why here at BACP, we've housed them together with our hospitality team. And liquor licensing is even more restrictive than PPA and PAV. There are moratoriums throughout the city, which means you can't obtain a new liquor license there. There's dry precincts throughout the city, which means it's, whole voting precincts where you can't get alcohol. And those affected institution checks that would require a distance reduction, the distance is shorter. So if you're looking for a liquor license in conjunction, it will be affected if you're within 100 feet of those institutions. So just like to point that out. As Amir mentioned, we have, a whole team here at City Hall. We have that will meet with you if you come in to walk you through all of these things. They'll make sure you have your proper documentation. They'll flag any potential concerns for you before you start investing, before you sign the leases, before you get yourself into some sort of contract that you can't get out of where you can't get those licenses. Next slide. And so that's just sort of our end point here from the BACP side. Here's just our information that Amir had already sort of stated, but our general, licensing website, our address at 121 North LaSalle on the 8th floor for any sort of in-person visit that you may want to do, open 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. And then if you just have any sort of specific licensing questions, obviously it's hard for Amir or I to dive into like nitty gritty things on this webinar. It's not really the format for it, but we have a general licensing email. You can send it to businesslicense@cityofchicago.org. Or as Amir said, if you're just having issues with our online system, Chicago Business Direct at cityofchicago.org. And our team can assist you. And that's all I had. I think we might open it up for questions.
Yes, thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Amir. As Amanda mentioned, specific questions about more sensitive or specialized information can be sent directly to those email accounts, but we will start to answer some of those questions that have been populating in the Q&A. One of the first ones is about digital products and digital events, so I will read the question. As an online content creator, what type of license do I need if I am interested in being an event and travel consultant that sells digital products? Do I need separate ones for the city as well as the state? And for in-person or digital events with children, are there specific licenses needed?
I can take this one. So as it pertains to being an online content creator, it seems you're looking to be at events and provide travel consultations, sell digital products. We would want to know where exactly you plan on doing this from. If it's from home, we do have home-based licenses that may be applicable to you. And so what we would want to know is where does the vast majority of this online content creator work happen from? Is it from home? If so, we can look into possibly licensing you from home. If your travel consultations are all done virtually, right? And again, it's from home, you might be able to get licensed from home. However, if you have in-person travel consultations, then it's something that would not be permitted for you to be able to do from your home. So really, it all depends on where these services are being offered from.
Thank you for that. Another question, with one user profile per person, what happens if you have more than one business?
So if you have more than one business, they can all be applied for under the same user profile.
Great, thank you. Next question. If I am an artist that wants a storefront to take photos for my own projects and host gallery shows and events, and I'm not sure if I want to charge or all the time yet. Also not sure if I want to have photos for sale or charge portraits. Essentially, it sounds like they're trying to ask, like, when should an entity apply for business licenses if they're not sure about the structure yet?
Yeah, let me read it real quick.
I can take a little bit of it, Amir.
Okay.
So I think Amir even touched on this a little bit in the presentation. That maybe is what triggered the question. We look at everything based on your underlying activity. So if you're still in the I don't quite know what I want to do phase, you're probably best to come to us and talk to us about your different ideas, and we can walk you through the process for each one of them. This one in particular, if you're looking to be sort of an art gallery that hosts events, that might be fine under just, as Amir mentioned, our limited business license. But we would want to kind of dive a little deeper and see what you envision those events being. Because if you start charging for admission, if you think that those events are going to have, alcohol, DJs, more of kind of a party vibe, while you're also selling the art, that might, swing you over into the hospitality PPA lane. And so we can't really advise on your underlying license type until we know exactly what business activity you're looking to conduct.
Yeah, I think Amanda got that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Can sole proprietors register for licenses?
Yeah, so you can apply for a brick and mortar location as a sole proprietor or as a legal entity. A peddler license, however, you would strictly apply for this as a sole proprietor, meaning under your name. But if you're going to operate out of a brick and mortar, you can apply for it as a sole prop or as a legal entity, that is, a corporation or an LLC. So, yes, sole proprietors can register for a license.
Okay, thank you. And the next question was similar, which I think you've essentially covered. LLCs and corps don't qualify for a peddler license, but sole proprietors are eligible.
That is correct. Yeah. Yeah. Sole proprietors can apply for a peddler license. Corporations and LLCs are not allowed.
Great. The next question, for dance instruction, what if you are renting space to teach dance and don't have your own physical location you work out of?
So if you are working directly for, if you're renting the space, that kind of sounds like you have some sort of and it's the same space. Sounds to me like you might have a physical location that you are solely operating from. And so we would, take a look and see at, how often are you renting the space out? Is there a lease? And if so, then we would probably license you at that location.
And as an extension of that question, if there is a dance instructor that changes locations every month, for example, would they need to apply for a different license each time for each new venue?
You know what? We don't have it would be one of those questions that we would need to look at our business activities and see what would apply for, in this case, what would be what we would consider a mobile dance instructor, just because they're moving from one location to another. So I would say it's best if we just kind of take that question offline and maybe go to business license at cityofchicago.org.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
And then the next question reads, for LLC and corps that don't require a peddler's license, however, if you perform and sell items, would the peddler be needed, but without the IDOR portion?
Yeah, so if you're just performing and you're not selling anything, then the Illinois Department of Revenue number is not needed. Again, the Illinois Department of Revenue, or the IDOR, is only needed if you're physically selling, if you're selling something physical, something tangible that your client walks away with. Just performing, IDOR is not needed for a peddler license.
Great, thank you. And does the peddler license cover you for pop-up shops and other kinds of vendor markets?
It does not, no. The peddler license specifically only allows you to be able to sell on the public way on the street. If you're looking to participate at a pop-up, more than often, the host or the organizer of that event is the one that would come in and apply for on your behalf.
Great, thank you. The next question reads, Illinois is home. Does this mean that all other states are considered alien registration?
Um, that's, hmm, I'm going to assume you're a legal entity that has established or formed a corporation or an LLC here in Illinois. So that would make you, a legal entity in Illinois. If you are a legal entity outside of Illinois, then that would make you a foreign entity, and you would then need to register with the state of Illinois.
Great, thank you. The next question I think was already answered. I want to have a storefront as my studio. They might sell prints or host picture days. I just want a space of my own without a set plan for sales. Do I need a license? And this sounds like one of those instances where meeting with BACP and discussing the underlying business would be an appropriate next step.
Yeah, that's correct. Ideally, what we want to know is, what's your vision? In order for us to be able to properly license you, you need to have an idea of what your business operation is going to be. And this is why, as I stressed earlier, very, very important that you have an idea of what product, what service you plan on offering out of this location. But yeah, we would invite you to come into the business center, and we'd be more than happy to have you sit down with a consultant so we can get into that vision of yours.
Great. The next question reads, is the business license fee the same amount every 2 years, or is it $250 for the first year and a separate renewal fee?
So most licenses, again, the peddler license is 100. If you're applying for a limited business license, that license for the most part is $250, and they're good for 2 years. You know, we don't dictate when the price on those licenses goes up, but as of today, most licenses are good for 2 years. And again, the cost of a license for a peddler, 100, for a limited business license, $250.
I would just add the renewal fee will be the same. So it's every 2 years you're paying that same fee unless,
Something changes.
yeah, unless the code changes, which is out of our hands.
Great, thank you both. This next one is a variant on a previously asked question. If you do not have or operate out of a building, for example, you rent space periodically or travel to clients to provide arts and craft programs, do you just need to apply for the license and skip the zoning process?
It's one of those things where we would want to know, where are you sourcing these clients from? Where are you coming up with these arts and crafts programs? If you're doing it from home, you're not physically having anyone come to your home, we more than likely might license you for a home-based business license. And so we would kind of want to know a little bit about, if you're renting the space periodically, is it, I don't know, maybe, twice a year? Is the vast majority of the work being done from home? Because if so, then we can probably license you with a home-based business license.
Thank you. How long does the whole process take? Is this a few weeks or months?
It really depends on your business operation. It also depends on what you're going to engage in, really. For example, as Amanda alluded to, if you're looking to apply for a public place of amusement license, it's not, an overnight thing. And so it really depends on what type of activity you're going to engage in. If you're applying for a peddler license, you more than likely are going to get that same day. So it all really depends on your operation. If you're operating out of a brick and mortar, again, if there's going to be if children under the age of 18 and it's 40% or more. So there's a lot of variables that goes into the timeline or the time frame for you to be able to obtain a license.
Thank you. The next question reads, if you do not operate out of a building, are you automatically defaulted to the application type of peddler?
Yeah, we don't auto default an application. So yeah, no. We would want to know again what product or service you're offering, and get an idea of where you plan on doing this from, right? If you're thinking of, let's say, drop shipping, right? And you're doing the activity from home. Maybe a home-based license applies. If you are storing inventory, so let's say you're storing your art at home, more than likely we could potentially maybe uh, license you for a home-based business, but require you to provide us uh, a storage agreement. So it all really depends on your operation.
Thank you. That next question reads, does the city help to apply for grants for a real estate investor or business with an LLC that is already established?
For this question on grants, and I think I maybe saw another one too, asking about sort of grants and opportunities in that vein. I would encourage you to send us an email at the businesslicense@cityofchicago.org email address. BACP has an entire small business advocacy team that's really tuned into grant opportunities for small business owners, and has a really good connection with Department of Planning and Development for those that already have sort of brick and mortar spaces and are looking for the same sort of financial assistance. And we can connect you to that team to get more information on those opportunities.
That's great, thank you. If you own a dance studio and choose to host a quarterly recital in your studio, will you need a PPA license in addition to the dance studio license?
So generally speaking, it's going to depend on what that recital looks like. If it is open to the public and you're selling tickets to the recital, you may. I know that's not a satisfying yes or no answer. But if it's more in line of, children, like 7-year-olds learning ballet, and it's just like mom and dad are coming to see the recital, it's unlikely you would need a PPA license.
Thank you. And then that sounds like a helpful reminder that not everything and anything requires a business license, but there are some things that do trigger that license requirement. The next question reads, what if all of my sales will be online or at a licensed festival? And this is coming from a painter.
So I guess we would want to know, where is the inventory being kept? Um, how are we conducting these sales? If it's from home, again, um, more than likely, um, we could probably get you a home-based license, and we might require you to provide us an agreement of where you're storing your art or your paintings. So it all really depends on currently present day today. What we would want to know is, where is that inventory being kept? How are you conducting your sales? From where, right? If it's from home, do you have a commercial location? So kind of more information would probably be required.
Thank you. The next question reads, I currently own and operate a business with a brick and mortar location and operate under a PPA license. I would like to partner with an art gallery and artist to coordinate pop-up art galleries at my location. Is there any additional type of licensing I need to procure, or is there a type of license or permitting that the artists or galleries need to have to move forward with this? If there are too many technical specifics to answer this, where should I get this information from?
I would send us again an email at businesslicense@cityofchicago.org. If you send us that email, if you could also include the name of your business and location, you may be good to go under your current licensing, but there may be some requirements of the artists who are looking to come in and sell. Based on what your underlying business activity looks like. We may have to go down kind of Amir touched on it briefly, I think, like our pop-up vendor licensing scheme for different events. But if you send us an email, we'll get it to the right team to take a look at it and respond back to you. But again, please include your business name and address so that we have full information.
The next question reads, are there free resources for getting consultation on establishing an LLC versus S Corp versus C Corp?
So we have neighborhood business development centers scattered across Chicago. So that would be a good resource for you to maybe look into. The acronym for that is NBDCs, so Neighborhood Business Development Centers. And they might be able to help you with consulting on establishing an LLC or an S Corp.
Thank you. Another question reads, if I have a monthly performance group that only takes donations, no tickets, and we only operate inside of an existing business, a local bar, what license would we need? Indoor special event licensing sounded closest to this, but not quite.
So under this scenario, what we would really want to look at is the underlying licensure for where these performances are taking place. So in this case, the local bar that you're performing at. If they have a public place of amusement license, you wouldn't necessarily need an additional license because you're doing the performing, right? So if you think of it in sort of the example I gave of your local bar has the band every Thursday night, that band doesn't have a license. What we're looking at is the brick and mortar establishment and their licensure. But you may be correct that if they don't have a PPA license, we have to look at their occupancy. There's all those factors that go into determining it. The indoor special event license could work potentially. The only thing I would flag and reiterate is that if you are popping up into the same bar every month, they would have that restriction of only 6 events per year. So again, if you want to shoot us an email at the establishment where this is happening, we can look if they have the underlying licenses, but it would be the underlining bar owner's responsibility to have that license.
Great, thank you. How can individuals sign up for the entrepreneur certification program?
Give me information, and they said in the meeting that they would get it to me by 4/4 because they.
So for the entrepreneur program, you can visit our homepage, Business Affairs and Consumer Protection at chicago.gov. And there should be some sort of direct link to the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program. And so you would just register, attend, and then ultimately graduate from that program.
Great, thank you. The next question reads, thank you so much for this webinar. If my business is a home-based creative consultancy service, no clients or customers come on site and there are no products, do I need a business license?
Yeah, we would license you for home-based consulting.
And the next question seems to read similarly. Do you still need a business license if you're doing an online business?
Yes.
There's been like 2 different.
The next question, are there penalties for retroactively obtaining a business license as a brick and mortar?
I can answer.
Okay.
It's gonna depend. So if you are out there, and I'm gonna just use the most chaotic example that I can think of, but if you are out there operating in a storefront, you're selling goods, have performances, it's ticketed to get in, and you don't have any underlying licenses, if CPD or our BACP itself has an enforcement team, if we came out and sort of quote unquote caught that activity, there could absolutely be penalties for that activity. But it's not a situation where you would come in and say, this is what I've been doing and I want to make sure I'm above board in licensing it without getting any of those sort of citations for CPD or our enforcement team. And we would say, well, how long have you been doing it? 6 months? Okay, then there's this penalty and you have to pay this fine because you just told us you've been doing it for 6 months without a license. It's more, if we catch unlicensed activity, you will be issued citations for that, but you're not getting penalized for coming in and obtaining proper licenses.
Great, thank you. This is I think a question we've also, sorry. How about funding for startup businesses and food and catering also licensed? So it sounds like they're interested in funding resources specifically.
Yeah, again, I would send us the email mentioning that you're looking for grants or funding opportunities, and we can connect you with our small business advocacy team.
Thank you. And I think this is sort of a repeat question. I am trying to sell my art online and I'm just starting out from my mother's home. What license do I need?
I was told that we can tell them that.
Yeah, so we would more than likely, again, you would probably fall under that home-based license where we might require you to provide us some sort of agreement from a storage unit to show where that art is being kept, just because the primary use of a home is for you to live in. And so we can't have you operating a full-blown business from your home. And so your application would have to go undergo zoning review, and zoning would be the one to better determine whether it would be acceptable for you to run this operation from home. But that might be the route to go if you don't have a physical brick and mortar location.
Thank you.
Not sure.
The next one reads, hey, thanks for the seminar. Will marketing on an advertising truck fall under amusement task? Also, if I put a topper on my ride-sharing vehicle, but my business is outside of Chicago, do I still need a permit if I'm just doing some business in Chicago?
It would be one of those questions that you can send us at businesslicense@cityofchicago.org. We might need to tap into different departments to get you a proper answer.
Great, thank you. As a jazz band manager, I'm also seeking to become a promoter. What type of licenses would be required? First as a manager of a band and as a promoter.
Generally speaking, we don't have a promoter license. I think that's something that people think that we license, but it's not. I would just use caution if that's the path you're looking to go down. Again, if there's admission fees being charged for entertainment and amusement, you're going to get yourself into a licensing lane or the space where your event is happening. But we don't have promoter or like band manager licenses.
What about a space that offers memberships for a co-working space? I'm asking because this space would gear towards entrepreneurs and creatives.
We would first want to check and see if that space is licensed, just because a lot of times, co-working space or promoting co-working space, but they don't have the proper licensure for that. And so we would, before you get into some sort of, membership or agreement with them, provide us the address so that we can ensure that your type of activity is going to be permitted at this co-working space.
Great. What kind of license is needed for a pop-up shop? And I think in this case, I'm reading it as for the organizer of the pop-up shop.
So for, it really depends on the type of pop-up event that's taking place. Will there be food involved? Will there be liquor? And so it's one of those things where we would need to obtain more information. It'd be best if you were, to come to City Hall, meet with a consultant, or, shoot us an email at businesslicense@cityofchicago.org.
Thank you. Next question. I have a home-based art gallery, 12 by 12. City licenses, state certificate, EIN, and MBE, yet we cannot apply or are eligible for city and state grants and funds. Why? I'm not sure that we will be able to fully answer this question, but if there's anything that Amir or Amanda you could share.
said it should be
I don't have an answer. Again, if you want to reach out to us and we can put it in front of our small business advocacy. The only thing I know in general is that grants and funds tend to have really strict requirements when it comes to dispersing the money. But again, if you want to connect with our small business advocacy team and maybe they have more insight on different grants or funds you could apply for that maybe you would be eligible for.
Thank you. And I think this next question, we also already have an answer for. What type of license is needed if my business is a co-working space for art making? And this is one of those where it seems like we need to better understand the zoning requirements. Is that correct?
Yeah, we would need to see if that space is zoned properly to be able to allow you to co-work in the space. What we won't do is license the same activity at the same location. So, for example, if there is a art gallery at 1234 North LaSalle, and you're looking to go in there and also be an art gallery at 1234 North LaSalle, we won't over license at the same location the same activity. But again, provide us the address. We can take a look and see what's currently there and if zoning permits.
Thank you. The next question, I think this is a clarifying question. So I don't need a pop-up license if I have a peddler's license. Is that correct?
So again, the peddler license will only allow you to be able to sell on the street or perform on the street. If you are looking to attend a pop-up, that's a completely different license that you would need to obtain, or that the host will need to apply for on your behalf, depending on the type of pop-up event. But in both cases, if you're going to peddle on the street, you need that license. If you're going to attend a pop-up, you will also need some sort of license, whether you get it or maybe the host. It all depends on the type of pop-up that's taking place.
Thank you. I'm going to skip a couple questions because I think one of them is repeat and another one is for banking requirements, which I don't think we can speak to here. If you want to sell art online with zero possibility of selling in a brick and mortar space, do you need a home-based license and not an art gallery license? What's the difference in the licensing process and cost?
Yeah, so we would first have to, learn a little bit more about your business operation, right? So your inventory, how much inventory do you plan on keeping in your home? What's the space that you plan on using from your home? Zoning would have to determine if, based off that information you provide us, you are permitted to run this operation from your home. And if you are, right, it's at that point in time though that zoning will determine if you need to satisfy some sort of storage agreement, or they might come back and say, nope, you're going to need a physical brick and mortar space. So again, you're selling art online, but where is that inventory being stored, or where is it being kept? Because again, your home is intended for you to live in, so we wouldn't want this business operation taking a vast, the majority of your space if it's meant for you to live in. So really, it's one of those things where we would want to sit down with you, learn a little bit more about where that inventory is being kept, how much space you're using from your home, and then present it to zoning so that they can determine whether or not it's going to be permitted as a home-based business.
Thank you. Do you need a license from Chicago if you're planning to host an event for your business in your home that's located in the south suburbs?
You do not. The city of Chicago is only regulating business activity that occurs within the city of Chicago.
Great. If you are thinking of having an enrichment program for about 5 girls in your home during the summer, do you need a license for this? Or what licensing would I need to make sure I am covered legally?
So the city of Chicago is not going to license you to have children in your home for enrichment programs. You might need to default to the state to see if maybe that's something they permit. But the city of Chicago does not allow for you to operate a business where you have individuals going in your home.
And-
Thank you. Do you have attorney resources to aid with the special use permit process?
So the special use process, I'm assuming this is related to zoning. I would reach out to the city's zoning department if they have any resources or aids for that process.
Thank you. Didn't quite catch the answer to this, but for service-based LLC businesses like creative consulting, is a business license needed if clients are not just based in Chicago?
If you have a combination of clients in Chicago, outside of Chicago, and your business is located in Chicago, you will need a city of Chicago license.
Thank you. Does a peddler's license cover selling product from a concession trailer, or does that require an additional license?
So the city of Chicago doesn't allow for trailers. However, if you're looking to specifically sell from a trailer, you might want to check with the Chicago Park District. But the city does not. The city of Chicago does not permit trailers.
Thank you. I work for a 501c registered in the state. We are looking to do pop-up events for artists that are veterans. All locations would be American Legions or VFW halls. What licensing are we required to get?
It would depend on what the event is. You sound like you would be eligible for indoor special event licensing if there's amusement or entertainment involved. But again, I would encourage you to check the underlying licensing of these locations. They may already have that sort of amusement activity license, and we wouldn't need to give you 2 licenses to operate there.
Thank you. And the last question currently in the Q&A reads, do we need different licenses for every city we move to?
Generally speaking, Amir and I can only, comment on what's required here in the city of Chicago. If you are looking to conduct business in other municipalities, you will have to check their local rules and ordinances.
Great. Thank you both for answering those questions. Those were the last ones in our queue. So I think we'll advance through the slides, and if anything else comes up before we wrap up, we'll get to those questions too. Sharing here on the screen, we just want to let you know that the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events is located at the Chicago Cultural Center at 78 East Washington Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60602. We don't have an easy process to connect with staff on site and in person, but we do encourage you to reach out via cultural resources at cityofchicago.org, visiting our website, chicago.gov/dcase, or checking out our socials, Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Chicago DCase.
Thank you to our presenters for today. If you are a part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, your account will automatically reflect your attendance within 24 hours. To learn more about that program, please visit chicago.gov/BACP certificate. Again, that's chicago.gov/BACP certificate. Today's webinar was recorded and will be available at our YouTube channel on youtube.com/Chicago BACP. Thank you again to today's presenters, and everyone have a great day. Bye.